Hello, I'm Gary Quinn, and welcome to another episode of Ready, Set, Live, The Conversations. My guest today is author and iconic casting director Joel Thurm. From his humble beginnings, growing up on his grandfather's dairy farm in New York, Joel became one of the most admired, powerful, and accomplished casting directors. As Vice President of Talent and Casting for both Paramount and NBC, he cast remarkable A-list movie stars, along with the movie Grease, Airplane, and the Rocky Horror Picture Show. Many of his television shows were Cheers, Taxi, The Love Boat, Fantasy Island, Charlie's Angels, and The Golden Girls. His new book titled Sex, Drugs, and Pilot Season is the ultimate backstage pass to the boardrooms of Manhattan and the executive suites of Hollywood where show business history was made. Don't go away. I'll be right back with Joel Thurm. Welcome, Joel, the iconic Joel.
Yes, thank you for having me here. I'm sure it's a pleasure.
You know, Joel, your extraordinary path is probably something that many people in the entertainment business go, wow. Growing up on your grandfather's farm, was there a sense of you saying, I want to be in show business, or I know you just went with the flow?
No, there was a sense of I wanted to be any place in the world except here.
Okay.
That was the thing. The thing was to get out of Brooklyn at all costs.
Uh-huh. Now the farm was in upstate New York?
No, it wasn't in upstate New York. It was in Brooklyn.
It was in Brooklyn.
It was in Brooklyn, New York.
Wow.
712 Hendrick Street.
How incredible is that?
It was about a third of a city block.
Uh-huh.
And I think there was one other farm in Brooklyn at that time.
Wow. And was it just cows, or was it growing
It was
vegetables?
56 smelly, filthy, yucky cows that stayed indoors in a beautiful Victorian red brick barn.
Uh-huh.
And I think they were let out of their stanchions like once or twice a year to take a walk around the property.
Uh-huh.
But for the rest of it, no, there was a nice Italian man that my grandfather, I don't know if the word is gave permission, but he used to grow lots of fruits and vegetables and flowers, and we got that stuff.
Wow. From cows to actors. Now, what was the catalyst that took you to Rome?
You're getting way ahead of yourself. Don't I have to get thrown out of college first before I go to Rome? Don't I have to get into college, join the theater group?
That's gonna be the movie, the Joel Thurm
So
movie.
you want me to jump from the farm to Rome?
Well, let's go to college.
Okay. So, I go to college.
Right.
I got sitting at home. Senior year of college. And by this time, we'd moved out of Peace, New York into Canarsie. We slightly bettered ourselves. Canarsie, East Flatbush. And I was going to Tilden High School, and a letter comes from the Board of Regents, State Regents Board, that I've won a scholarship, a New York State scholarship. And my mother is saying, oh, this is ridiculous. It has to be wrong. So 3 days later, a call came from the New York State Department, whatever the Regents Board is, saying, oops, there's another Joel L. Thurm at a different school who won the scholarship. If you Google me now, he is a retired urologist living in North Carolina, so he got dibs on that. But no, what happened was I was being a classic underachiever with like test scores off the charts and like less than C averages, I couldn't go to the nearest city college, so I went to the furthest one away called Hunter College in the Bronx, an hour and 45 minutes away by subway and bus.
Wow.
They had a special program for underachievers, which turned out really wasn't a special program at all. It just meant you could only take 12 credits. But the good thing about this trip was I never had to open a book at home.
Nice.
Because I pretty much got on at the first stop of a train and got off at the last stop of the train. So I always had a seat. And that's where I was introduced to the theater group.
Okay.
And that's how my interest in actually maybe even thinking about entering show business as a career happened.
Wow. And then you went to Rome.
Yes, I accidentally flunked out of college. Accidentally, because I thought if I dropped a class, I would get a withdrawal without prejudice, but no, I got a withdrawal with failure. So at that time, Italian movies were all the rage. All the magazines were full of Cleopatra and Liz and Dick. And I thought it would be a lot easier for me to learn Italian than it would be to learn Greek, which is my other passion of mythology. So Italy seemed the better place for it. And so I just went to Italy.
Wow. What was your favorite, let's say, thing about Italy? Because I know everybody says, oh, I love the food, I love the people, I love the culture.
Well, it's so hard because everything about it impressed me when I got there. The light, the weather, the fact that I was walking in places and on places that people had walked on thousands of years ago. To walk through the Roman Forum, to be able to seriously walk into the Colosseum with nobody stopping you and sitting down there.
Right.
And just imagining. It just was, it was kind of overwhelming. And that coupled with the art museums and just the cultural feeling that was there, and not to minimize the food, of course.
Yes.
Because it is impossible to have a bad meal in Italy.
Exactly. So in Italy, you sort of dabbled into the entertainment business and you got into acting, would you say?
Well, you're great. I wouldn't describe it quite that way.
Right.
I mean, I'll go into it. Again, it's weird. Where do I start the story, Gary? Do I start the story with being at home on a rainy night? Because you read the book.
Yes. I would just say the highlights.
The highlights.
The bullet points.
The bullet points to this was I met a man named Guidarino Guidi. Guidarino Guidi was Fellini's assistant, and he was an assistant casting director, too. But he didn't cast any Fellini films. He cast other films. And I guess he took a pity on me, and I was in several movies, like just glorified extras. Gidget Goes to Rome, Zorro meets the Three Musketeers, or Four Musketeers, or how many Musketeers there were. But there were 3 films, and I just was an extra. And but I called them, I never refer to them as extra, I think.
Atmosphere.
No, Atmosphere came much later. I think I just lied and said I had parts.
So after the Rome, you came back to America and you landed a job with the iconic Pearl Bailey.
God, you're not doing jumps. You're just doing like this.
I know. Well, that's why I don't want to give away all the chapters of the book.
So when I came back, I went up through like a ladder of training of summer stock, winter stock, and finally I got the opportunity to meet the David Merrick's general manager. At that time, David Merrick was the most important producer in New York theater. And his general manager, whose name was Jack Schlissel, worked right under him, and he was Merrick's hatchet man. And I became the assistant to Merrick's hatchet man. So the one thing I couldn't do was be like Jack. I mean, he wanted a mini-me, and I couldn't threaten the way he could. Anyway. But Jack liked me, and we had long talks every morning before I started work. I'd come in a little early. There were no coffee machines then, so you had to bring him from the diner downstairs. And we talked about what I'd seen the night before, shows, plays, our shows. And one day I talked about one of our shows where we knew Brenda Vaccaro was in it, and she was leaving, and her understudy was on. And her understudy was very good. So I told Jack, hey, she got all the laughs, and I'm sure she'll be a lot cheaper if we use her. And I think the word cheaper caught his ear. Because a few weeks after that, I got called into his office summarily and was told, look, I can't stand working with you anymore. So you got a choice. You can either reopen our casting department, go work with Biff Liff, who was the production manager, get a $50 a week raise, or walk out the door and you're fired. And I said, I don't know anything about casting. And he said, yes, you do. You just don't know you do. And so obviously I didn't quit. I took that job.
Wow.
And so without any prior training, I suddenly, became, David Merrick's casting director.
Wow. And I believe that casting directors have a sixth sense that they know or they feel when the actor is spot on. It is a talent. It is a talent.
I think it's a talent, but it's also a talent that needs to be nurtured. And when I look back at it, I look back at all the television I watched as a little kid. Mm-hmm. The fact that I would go to movies, the local movie theater for the kiddie show, and then be allowed to stay for the adult show afterwards. And all of these actors left some sort of an image on my brain. Mm-hmm. So, it wasn't as hard as I thought because I had seen so many things.
And you were at a time when Hollywood was Hollywood. I was talking to about this with someone the other day I remember when I first came to Hollywood, I had the privilege of being able to meet Charles Bronson and Jill Ireland and, these iconic actors who, there's just not, they aren't around anymore. Mm-hmm. It was a different era, but you were in it to see all of this, which was an encyclopedia of personalities, really.
Yes, I would
say. And so when you were casting, you went right into, after you took this role as a casting director, what was the first thing you cast?
Well, the first thing I cast was not in L.A. Mm-hmm. First thing I cast was in New York. They were the constant recasting of people going in and out of Pearl Bailey Dolly. Mm-hmm. Pearl Bailey was then the fifth star to play Dolly on Broadway, and to my mind, she was still the best. So there were replacements with Pearl in that show. And then there was this dredged up from my memory. It was a play called The Penny Wars that a famous actress who maybe nobody will have heard of now, Barbara Harris, was directing. And it was a small family drama, and it went nowhere, but that was the first one. Meeting Barbara Harris was very exciting to me because of who she was. But again, no one's going to know her now. Mm. But I also played against Sam, the Woody Allen show. I came in after Promises, Promises. The musical was open, but I did all the replacement casting and the roadshow casting. And trying to see what else. 40 Carats. Wow. 40 Carats was still playing on Broadway, little slight romantic comedy with a romance between a 40-year-old woman and a 20-year-old boy. And the the most memorable part of that is actually when Julie Harris was leaving after her contract was over. And we had to replace her. And I replaced her with an old movie star named June Allison, and did very well. The box office was good, performance was good, and then she began to miss performances. Mm. And we found out that the water bottle that she had been drinking was not really full of water. And so vodka fueled a lot of her performances and then fueled a lot of her missed performances. Mm-hmm. So she graciously left the show. Wow. And then I said to Merrick, there's one person who wants to do this show. I think she's still around and available. And I've been keeping her away, and that's Zsa Zsa Gabor. And he looked at me with these eyes, and he said, well, maybe. And so we then met with the show's writer, a woman named Jay Allen, who was the 800-pound gorilla in the room because she had all these wonderful credits. And Merrick, his phrasing was wonderful. He said, how would you feel if we prostituted the show to get a few more months' run? And Jay said, what do you mean? And Merrick said, well, Zsa Zsa Gabor, we could put her in the show. And Jay thoughtfully for a little while said, yeah, if you think she'll sell, sure. So that's when I learned that anybody can be bought.
All right, so fast forward to Los Angeles. Mm-hmm. You're in Hollywood. You started with What was the first major project? I know you did The Boy in the Plastic Bubble. Or
No.
that wasn't the first one.
No, the first important thing that I think I cast, I got to work for CBS, and I was given the Bob Newhart show to cast. So I did not do the pilot, but from the day the pilot was finished, I took it over, and I did it for the next couple of years. So that was the first big, and it turned out to be a really big thing.
Yeah, and that sort of put you in the MTM family.
Very much so. It also did something at home in Brooklyn that my name began to appear on television every Saturday night on a half a card, and the credits on television shows used to run by slowly so you could actually read them. So my family was more impressed than anybody else. So once my name appeared on television, I could do no wrong.
Right.
So that was the first benefit of Newhart.
And then after Newhart, you ended up. When did Grease? I know you did the Rocky Horror Picture Show, but when did Grease arrive?
Well, you're jumping a lot of stuff. So, Rocky Horror Show happened early, I think in 74, 75. I cast the first stage production of Rocky Horror in the U.S., and that was at the Roxy nightclub. And then, the people we found for that, it was Tim Curry came over when the original cast. Everybody else was American. But the other standout in the cast was we came up with Meatloaf. And that ran for like about 9 months. And then the movie happened right afterwards. And then there's the whole story of how I got Susan Sarandon and Barry Bostwick in the picture. But that could take a little time. But that's not what you asked me. I diverted somewhere. Grease came 4 years later.
Okay.
Yeah.
And at that time, you were looking, or you already knew who you wanted to cast for the leads?
In what?
In Grease.
Oh, if we're going to Grease.
Yeah,
okay.
we're jumping to Grease.
Okay, got it. All right. So jumping to Grease. No, first of all, Grease happened because of John Travolta. I mean, the businessmen had decided that if they had Travolta, they had a movie they could distribute and all that. So he was set, and John wanted Olivia. We talked about it, and it was, first of all, it was a great idea. It was his idea. He wanted it. And then it was up to me to make that happen. Because Olivia didn't jump at this opportunity. She initially said, well, gee, I don't know. So she asked for a screen test. I've never heard since or before of an actor asking for a screen test. It's always the studio or someone above that. But she had done a British movie a while back and was embarrassed at the way she came off. So we did the scene at the drive-in in a full, what do you call it, costume and makeup film test. We were doing the scene at the drive-in. And and for some reason we did one take, no laughter. Now, when that would happen, normally the writer or somebody would be around to say, I wonder what's happening. But there were no writers there. Neither the writer nor the producer showed up for this. Another take, no laughter. And so what I did is I pulled out of my back pocket a book of the musical script, not the film script we were using, but the musical play script, turned to the same scene, and there was the problem. The dialogue for the movie was different dialogue than the play. So what I did is I gave the play dialogue to the director, Randall Kleiser. I said, here's why it's not working. Give this to them and see what happens. The next take, the crew was laughing. The next take, Olivia was smiling. And so going back to the original material, it worked. When Olivia saw the screen test, she said, yes, I'm in, and basically that's what happened. So I saved the day.
Isn't it so interesting? It's so interesting that the behind the scenes to make something gel that may have not happened, or that, that there were these components that brought it together for it to happen.
Well, exactly. And it's interesting because what I did then, I thought that I had done something really good. Well, the next couple of days later, Alan Carr, and who was one half of he and Bronte Woodard opened up the musical and turned it into, the movie. I mean, he was pissed at me. He said, well, did I detect the fine hand of Joel Thurm in that test? And I said, yeah, wasn't it great? Like a little kid showing off for his parents. And he just glared at me. And from that day, I was totally on his shit list, and I just had to figure out not to go any higher. Mm-hmm. But he was pissed because it was his words that I changed. Mm-hmm. I didn't know they were his words to change.
Interesting. Wow. And then Airplane.
Yeah.
How was that? I know you cast Robert Hayes. Was it through because you knew Angie, or you had used Robert before?
Well, no, I'd never really used Robert before, but I got to know him from when I produced Angie, so he was there.
Right.
The only problem we had was originally Paramount wanted a star, and Robert was not a star, even though he was starring in an on-air series for Paramount. But movies and television were very separate then. So he didn't come in until we were like, 2/3 through with the casting process.
Wow.
But once he came in, there was no contest.
I remember I was there because I was working on Angie, and I remember his agent, Arnie Soloway, used to say, we got this deal, but I can't talk about it. It's going to really shift his career. And you really did shift his career.
Well,
hey,
what can I say?
I think that's the thing about casting directors is they make or break careers in some way.
Well, yeah, yes. I mean, I'm not so sure about the breaking, but the making, yes, by putting look at all the people I put in Taxi.
Oh, my God.
No one ever knew them before,
exactly.
Really. And, Danny DeVito, no one knew him, and Mary Lou. I mean, these are people who, and Danny has been the most vocal about thanking me.
Yeah.
He's been wonderful about that, because usually casting directors are, once your job is done, goodbye.
Correct.
and then the producer and directors take all the credit.
But you know what I really sense with people over the years is that I remember when my very first day of work there, Danny and Tony Danza took me into their dressing room separately and said, welcome to the show. If anybody messes with you, come and see me. And I never forgot that. And I saw Danny over the July 4th at a party, and I reminded him, and I said, Danny, I'll never forget you telling me that. Yeah. Because that just shows humbleness and gratitude of opportunities that were given, and I think that's what makes an actor be able to work over and over, because they have that. What was the most outrageous audition that you were privy to that you said, oh, no, I don't know about this guy or this woman, but I know I must have her?
Oh, you mean an audition that turned out well?
Yes, that you would have never, that when you met that person, you said, oh, my goodness, this is a star in the making. I must cast her. I must have him or her.
That requires thought. Can we let me think
yes,
about
we'll
that?
move on to
another
next
question.
Okay.
Because I was going to the worst ones.
Okay, what was the worst one?
Well, the worst one was it's that I felt so sorry for this woman because she had thought everything out. It was for a female action star. She was going to be the main. Well, it was her, but there were other people, but she was the focus, and it was an action piece. And it was, I forgot her name, but she was one of the premier dancers in the Fosse film. Blonde, legs up to her chest. And what her plan was to step out out of one costume and into the new one, and the new costume considered was black leather pants. And she got one foot in, and the other foot, her heel went through the leather.
Oh, no.
And you could feel it's like, oh, not only is it an expensive pair of pants, but she ruined what she wanted to do. And we all felt so sorry for her, and she didn't get the part.
I think the thing that actors, when they finally find themselves authentic and they know that they don't have to do anything except be themselves or the character, that's when they get the job. That's when they sparkle. That's
a very difficult point to get to.
Yes. Because everybody's always worried, I have to be like that person that they want. But basically, you never knew what you never knew what you wanted. You were waiting for them to come and show you,
Not
right?
necessarily. No, you knew what the basic characteristics of a character were.
Mm-hmm.
You knew what you wanted, but you never had to get exactly that.
Right.
So yeah.
I mean, going on to Aaron Spelling, the Charlie's Angels, that must have been an interesting casting time.
Well, Charlie's Angels, from the very beginning, Kate Jackson was set, and Farrah was like on the horizon, not the horizon. She was there. We knew Farrah was going to be the second one, so it was really only looking for the third part. And this is when we were doing the pilot.
Correct.
And Linda Otto and myself were working on it, and we brought in everybody.
I can imagine.
And I mean, what? Oh, God, Michelle Pfeiffer came in. I remember all these names came in, and for some reason, and to this day, I don't know how you judged in that case.
Mm-mm.
But, and Jackie Smith wound up with the part. She had done a few Spelling Goldberg shows before that. They felt comfortable with her. The hair color was different with all three people, and that was it. But it went on forever, and we had... It was very unusual for the day. We had a few black actresses test for it, but it wound up with Jackie.
Wow. What would you say the most important thing for an actor that over the years of casting, they should really just know that that's all they need to know when they walk into a part? What's the biggest secret you could say, if you do this?
Well, it's not so much secrets. First of all, you should know what you're auditioning for. That's the most important thing. If it's a TV series, you should have watched at least one episode of the series, mm-hmm. because then you know what it's like. And I would say, come to think of it, that's the most important part, is knowing what you're auditioning for. And if you have any questions, ask.
Right.
Now, this character is supposed to be blah, blah, blah. Here, is that so? Or... don't be afraid to ask questions.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Because the other thing that actors always forget is casting directors want you to get that job, because then they don't have to go looking anymore if you have it and the work is done.
Exactly.
And most actors think the opposite, that they don't want me. It's not true.
Exactly. All right, Joel. Well, I am so excited about your book.
I am too.
And it's called Sex, Drugs, and Pilot Season. And
Confessions of a Casting
Confections. Confessions.
Convections of a... Yes, I would always take that path. Sex, Drugs, and Pilot Season, Confessions of a Casting Director.
And that will be available on Amazon, or all your bookstores will have it. And I thank you so much, and I could just chat with you all day about this.
Yeah.
You definitely have to do a documentary or something.
So do it.
Okay. I'm Gary Quinn. Join me for another episode of Ready, Set, Live. Until next time, stay well.